Good morning, dear colleagues. Sorry for this delay. We have all of our speakers with us at last, and we can start our roundtable to consider proposals on enhancing cybersecurity in our country. And I think probably Anton, Gerashchenko, advisor to the Minister of Internal Affairs of Ukraine, will start with his proposals. The roundtable we have today is the first in the series of communications between law enforcement agencies and civil society associations and organizations, as well as associations of internet users, protecting interests of both users and providers. The key tasks we have put before ourselves is to develop legislative actions to secure the Ukrainian internet space from harmful traffic, from lies, from drug trafficking and drug trade, from abuse of children and related information, and all other things that should be legislatively regulated. Surely one of the priorities concerns the fight against terrorism and the lies, this propaganda poured onto Ukraine. We have a number of Russian TV channels banned from Ukrainian air by decision of the relevant National Committee for Telecommunications. We prevented them from spreading their lies across the country. And in the new parliament, we'll see how to deal with satellite broadcasts of these channels. Yet nevertheless, we still face a fully-fledged problem of Russian TV channels broadcasting widely over the internet. You can see live news still telling things about sleighs and pieces of land to be granted to National Guards, etc. Another thing is looking for insurgents, for volunteers to join the insurgents, and other such websites that are located physically outside Ukraine, and we may do nothing about it. Nevertheless, there are some early solutions developed elsewhere, and there are some technological decisions that will provide for the protection of the space of Ukraine, internet space of Ukraine, with support from civil society institutions from such negative impact of undesirable sources. I'd like to show you to a presentation. A small presentation. I think we will have to answer a question. Do we agree with Russian TV channels continuing the broadcasts on the Ukrainian internet? Will we agree to cases of funds collection for the benefit of DNR, LNR terrorist organizations? You can register on relevant website even from the Western Ukraine and dole some money to support some of the terrorist units. And surely these issues closely connect to the freedom of expression, the freedom of speech, but on the other hand, they also tackle issues of national security and the need to limit the harmful effects of Russian propaganda also in our segment of the internet. So if relevant governmental decisions to prevent Russian channels from broadcasting freely on Donbass could have been made before, then Putin would not be as successful with his advances in that part of Ukraine. Though it is good to have this round table now, we still have to be very serious about this question of whether we will allow further on to continue this pouring of propaganda on the country, or will rather consider the idea of limiting it. Let's take an example of Rwanda with Tutsi and Hutu tribes warring against each other. You know that mass media played prominent role in this conflict. The radio station of Seven Hills heavily contributed to the killings, mass killings, up to 1 million of local residents. There was a Hague tribunal that really condemned many of those culprits, including the editor-in-chief of this radio broadcasting station and a number of media representatives who were regarded as directly complicit to these mass killings. We see many similar things unfolding now here in Ukraine. So we still see this information fight unleashed in the internet, in social media and social networks. I'd like to present you to the presentation of Deputy Head of Information Security and Cybersecurity Department, Maksym Lytvynov. You will have a chance to react to it and feedback afterwards. And then we will be able to discuss it. If there is a certain information that is clearly of terrorist nature, if there is a website offering ways and money and other means to support terrorists attacking the Donetsk airport, we need to have technical possibility to ban this site on the territory of Ukraine. There should be some judicial decision based on specific legislative criteria to do it. And there should be measures to enable us block this site all over the territory of Ukraine. Similar situations and filters are installed in other countries like Arabic countries or China. Well, we have an expert from Internet organization. He has to leave quite soon, actually in 10 minutes. Maybe we could listen to him before this presentation by Mr. Maximov.
We have read the draft law. That's why we do not need your presentation. I will tell not just bad news, but very bad news. As any regular person, I do not like live news. I don't like terrorism. I don't like watching violence on TV, in internet, and I understand the threat of propaganda. But living in the global world, we should understand what's going on. I understand and I realize that you, absolute majority, won't like my point of view. But this is the moment when we can step onto a dangerous path, and that is, we will start wasting money on the objectives and purposes which could not be reached and implemented under current technical opportunities. It is impossible to close the country for internet. Look at China and look at Russia. My company is a big hosting company in the internet. 30% of Russian companies have their websites hosted from Kiev, and when they come to us and say, our websites are blocked in Russia, my engineers and my experts provide them with good advice how to overcome this. Actually, the problem which we are tackling today first raised in the times of invention of printing, and at that very time humanity faced the problem how to prevent dissemination of information which was considered not to be good, and you can see the result. The Inquisition was invented, and now we have books, but we do not have Inquisition. And what shall we do today? How to overcome that harm which is made by propaganda? There is such a notion as a digital sovereignty, and this is only one country which possesses it. This is the United States. The elements of digital sovereignty have two countries. These are China and Russia. Digital sovereignty means the elements that you have your own hardware production, your software production, your own servers, and the means how you can block servers, hubs, etc. Ukraine do not have all these elements, and thus a part of the world. Now our world will split. This will be part of the world which will go under the U.S. digital sovereignty. Then part of the world will go to the Russian digital sovereignty, and part of it will go under Chinese sovereignty. Because everything what you have in your mobile phone is under the U.S. Digital sovereignty, because they have created operational systems. If there is an information war against us, then we should respond via information war methods. Okay, then I would like you to stay longer because I will respond to you. I know what you probably will say to me about the packet inspection, about new equipment, about experience of other countries. My response is as follows. Look, there is the market of digital content. This is the market of copyright and intellectual rights, and these are trillions of dollars, and they appear to be unable to divide this market. The only thing which they managed to reach, this is to decrease slightly illegal content. That's why I believe the right strategy should be as follows. Together with the security service of Ukraine, there should be a working group of technical experts. There should be technical working group which will develop a report. What is possible to do, what is impossible. I do not wish to disclose publicly what could be done and what could not be done. This group should prepare such a report, and based on this very report, the document should appear a piece of legislation which will prescribe application of heavy artillery, so to say, in case of the most dangerous situations. When Russians mentioned that they will develop the Cheburashka system, how they call it, but in case of any real war, Russia will be able to disconnect its internet system from the rest of the world. And we also should develop similar pieces of legislation and similar strategies, apply similar strategies, but unfortunately we should be very much aware that this is like a nuclear weapon which could be used only once. We are going not just to prohibit the spreading of pandemic. We're just trying to invent a vaccine and develop an immunity against it. That's why we're speaking about establishment of the working group. I have Mr. Demediuk, deputy head of the security group in the Ministry of Interior, and we are ready to cooperate with you. The technology has become more and more complicated. There are a lot of tasks and challenges set by development of these technologies. When an inventor of the first recorder music player invented it, he mentioned that this is a useless invention. In Saudi Arabia, in China, in many countries, they have blocked access to some websites. That's not true. Even in Ukraine, there are people in Ukraine who earn millions and millions of dollars because they provide access for Saudi Arabic people to pornographic sites. My statement is that we should preserve human lives through prevention of the access to Russian propaganda. If we will find out that this is extremely expensive for Ukrainian budget, then we will step back. That is what we suggest. Let us develop technical technical feasibility study, so to say. And I can provide an example. In 1996, when the tours for internet creation was formulated, it was formulated in the way that let us create a system which won't rely on the reliability of all its elements. I'm not a technical expert, and we should think in the direction how to block an access to live news. For example, website could be blocked for many users. I believe that we are in a situation of limited resources. Our financial resources are limited. When there is a warfare in the East, you have a continuous option whether to buy something necessary, but what you suggest to start today may require huge resources. Even taking 10% of that financial resources which you suggest to spend for the purposes which you announced today, if to streamline all these resources against information war, into information war, then we would be able to do something effective. We have contacts with cyber security units in the United States. We may rely on this cooperation. When we have launched Stop Terror website and started it in Luhansk and Donetsk Oblast, the next day Rospotrebnadzor, special Russian agency, issued an order to block access to this website. We wish to establish just the first stage barrier for those who want to get access to live news websites. We want to decrease the level of threat for regular people and prevent them from going to websites and raising money for terrorists and sending them clothes, warm clothes, etc. Let's listen to Maksym's presentation, and then we will continue our discussion.
Just a brief remark. Alexander uses a bit, not just arguments, because using your line, we may say that it is not principally possible to deal with the crime. Should we stop doing it or attempting to mitigate crimes in view of that? I think this is not fair. Well, I on my side might say it is fair, because there are some types of crimes that you better not try to fight, because you will just lose lots of money rather than spending them on more serious crimes. You know, Russian propaganda costs us tens of millions of dollars in direct costs and many more victims. And terrorism is really the crime that should be dealt with. The question is, what is the price and what is the metaphor for it? So actually we are already in the discussion, and maybe the presentation will not be the right way of continuing it, so I will try to rush through my presentation. So the following thesis I'd like to offer. These theses describe first the list of problems, then the models of content filtering used worldwide, filtration measures, national legislative limitations, suggested concept of mitigating the threats, and the website actually that we offer to use. It's an open platform website. Everyone is welcome to contribute his vision, his suggestions to draft legislation on that, or make any other contribution. So the problems, the range of problems. First, censorship. We've discussed this question extensively. Actually, I personally think that the issue of censorship and those social areas that directly relate to politics, to the freedom of speech and freedom of expression, they should be really limited in terms of the clause of this legislation, if you want, because any further encroachment on the freedom of speech and expression will really harm the nation and the statehood. The issue of illegal content, that's a closer thing because it deals to specific criminal code provisions whereby it is stipulated what should be react on and upon. The problem with elusive responsibility, it's rather a legislative problem because many times law enforcement agencies may not be able to directly affect the workings of some internet resources located outside Ukraine. At least currently, we are not in a position to efficiently counteract these resources, whatever the type is, whether they are terroristic or whether they are about some petty crimes or are in violation of any human rights and freedoms. Then we have a problem, a growing problem of the fundamental deficiency of our legislation. Virtualization, cryptography, the lack of borders in webs, and other aspects. They're largely beyond the legislative scope, yet they should be protected as much as regular spheres of life are protected by the existing legislation. I would like to present you to this page. Without going into much details, I can tell you can find it on the internet. There are several models to filter content used worldwide. They have their differences, their similarities, and they differ actually as per the extent of the freedom of expression and freedom of spread of information. So measures, filtration measures, DNS blocking, IP change, file hashing or using signatures, file signatures, content-based filtering using proxy servers, traffic blocking as per protocols, blacklisting, whitelisting, selective disconnection of internet segments. So this is not the priority list, it's just the list of measures used elsewhere in the world. There are also organizational ways of dealing with it, provided they are included in relevant legislation. They are probably widely known to you, so I'm not going to list them. Again, speaking of legislative limitations, the Ukrainian legislation expressly provides for it effectively and expressly bans censorship, informational censorship. Censorship is a kind of pre-moderation, and the existing this legislation that we discuss, it won't enhance, say, the problem, the issue of censorship. It will rather deal with resources that will not be moderated. They will be banned if found destructive. How the concept will work? I'll put it in simpler words to save on time. All measures, all methods which will be in the hands of the law enforcement agency under this would-be legislation will concern specific criminal code language. If there will be any sort of crime punishable under this legislation, it will be directly within the responsibility of the militia forces. I think it will be good to have a range of articles in that piece of legislation to show which areas of societal life are of more priority for regulation and which are of less priority. We also suggest the following scheme: when an investigator, a criminal investigator, will include the information on specific type of crime in the register of criminal procedure, pre-trial proceedings, and then this investigator may apply relevant counteraction measure enshrined in the legislation, and he will include information about the resource, description of the resource that will be limited according to this criminal provision. And the providers, internet providers in the country, will be able to use this pre-trial register of cases to react accordingly. I'm not sure how exactly they will deal with it. Anyway, Alexander Olshanskyi is entirely right in saying that the whole idea of first introducing legislative restrictions and then seeing how they work in reality, this is not the best model. But then again, it's about a work group to sit and decide how it would go, whether there should be some technical considerations preceding the legislative moves or something should be done in parallel. It remains to be seen. We can skip that slide and go to another one, and yet another one. There is a website, you see the name of it on the slide, where you can see all the proposals voiced up by the cybersecurity department together with the Ministry of Internal Affairs. Also with regard to legal terminology, there are no specific proposals on criminal legislation, but the portal is open for everyone to enter her proposals or ideas. That is, we have a platform to discuss. We have a forum, a chat there, and I can only welcome you to join the discussion to see how the legislation could be improved. And thank you for your attention. Just to joke about it, such registers normally are used by criminals to create an automated program to bypass your filters. And listing in such register, the way they do it in Russia, is one of the most efficient advertising methods so far. As soon as a resource gets into the list of Russian oversight institution, it immediately becomes popular. People willing to know what they have exactly there. Speaking of Navalny's blogs, it's another history because Navalny has his blog on the territory of the Russian Federation, which makes it entirely a different case. So that is not just technical aspects of it. There is a host of questions. It is a question of content that we have on our territory and the content that we don't have here. These are very neat technical things that we need to consider. And in any case, I think that beside technical work group, it would benefit, really, it would be beneficial to have a strategic vision of what to do with it, because most probably we will still have internet with us tomorrow and the day after tomorrow, and the situation will only aggravate. Because of that, I think that we need to get accustomed to a certain new model of threats to national security that comes from the virtual dimension as such. Because I see that this new type of threat, this model of threat, is still to be understood and comprehended at every level, from the military to other levels in Ukraine. Strange as it may seem, but the ideologies behind this Russian information war did report on that for quite a number of years, also here in Ukraine, and they were rather open in describing the situation as it was and how it would change later on. And you can actually read more on that on YouTube. That is, we just fail to learn. We don't learn, and this is our problem. It's our challenge. We have to do it because it's now a weapon of choice. You know, every human invention goes across 3 stages: sex, exchange, and war. And the internet is already past the first 2 stages, and now it entered the phase of war, and we need to regard it as such. As I'm sitting in between those pillars of internet security, I'd still like to add my vision. I think that we are a bit overreacting in our discussion, and I would rather present you with 2 cases. First, check the Hong Kong, when they tried to kill the internet during these recent protests. The students, the protesters, managed to use their smartphones to introduce a network that did not rely on the internet. And in this regard, I would rather support Alexander with his words that it might not be possible technically to kill the internet altogether. Secondly, my personal case, I tried to enter rusvesna.su website through my internet connection. Without going into more details, I will tell you that the provider informed me that the access to that site is blocked by decision of. Actually, I managed to enter the site some other way, but I can tell you that more than half of Ukrainian residents will know nothing about how to bypass this limitation. We did already live through it. Remember the Voice of America situation in the USSR when about 5 to 10% of the population were able to find this radio station and listen to it. Well, I think the whole pitch of today is wrong, because when I first heard the name of this roundtable discussion that was about cybersecurity, I had in mind 2 different lines of these discussions. First, concerning the information aspect that affects consciousness and public understanding, and we will not be able to put up any fences in one's mind. We won't be able to get inside the brain, but there is an infrastructural, a technical level of cybersecurity that should be really regulated very clearly by the state itself, not just because the state is willing to protect its own interests, but it is also about me as the citizen of this country who wants his rights, my rights, to be protected from any infringement. But you have your rights and they're already protected. But I don't see them working. You should address courts. You should go to courts if you feel if your rights is abused. Yeah, we have some capabilities regarding that. The only body that we have to date, we have just the only one of them who is able to say that this information is able, it should be blocked. This is the National Council for Tele and Radio Broadcasting. And there is the Expert Commission on Moral. Come on. You did it intentionally, just to kill the whole discussion. Let's support the moral principles at this table, and let's not shout here, let's not choke the speakers. You know that any time they mention the National Commission on Morale at any internet forum or conference, it kills the discussion invariably. Let us put it like this. You can take your floor and express your views without interrupting others. Thank you. So, as soon as we remember such bodies as the National Moral Commission, we really end with such type of reactions. I was present at a roundtable chaired by Mr. Kostitsky, and a lady from the Ministry of Culture said something that made me leave this roundtable, and she exactly said that to have healthy conditions for growing our children in Ukraine, we need a certain matrix of social morale imposed, which made me leave this conference because I didn't want anybody and anyone to impose any morale matrix on me, on my family, on my children. I don't want anyone to limit my information rights. I simply want my information rights to be protected. And the topic is really of importance, but I would still split information and psychological aspects of it, because we may not limit information the way we may limit water or air supply. And there are really limited possibilities of us influencing someone's consciousness. If you're flooded, say your house is flooded, you may not be able to use some cardboard to prevent water from entering your house. On the other hand, there are also technical aspects, be it DDoS attacks, be it other harmful attempts that should be tackled. That is, let us separate information and psychological things from technical and organizational things. If someone is deeply sharing the idea of Ukrainian fascists, etc., you won't change his mind by seizing the broadcasting of certain channels. On the other hand, if there are some legal rights that should be protected, it is my opinion that this discussion that we have and the presentation that the Minister of Internal Affairs has presented us just recently, these are very important things, and they can only be thanked for this work. We are just in a situation when we are just starting our searches, and let us have some alternative options on the table. We have some legislative initiative on offer. Let's discuss it.
I would like to add, have you read the text of this draft law? Have you read it? Yes. Do you like it? And thus, you believe that what is written here on these 5 pages, it will actually implement and allow us reach that objective which you set for us. I think that the work, some piece of work was done. The question which you are asking today, this is the question for the future, and I am happy to listen to your suggestions and recommendations. Instead of this draft law, what we suggest is to invite technical experts, and this group of technical experts will develop a report. What technical possibilities do we have? What technical opportunities do we have to prevent dissemination of illegal content? After this technical expertise, after this technical vision, and how this is feasible, then we will have grounds for writing down the texts of the draft laws, which will allow to implement that measures that will be suggested by technical experts. I am not ready to comment on the draft law because I've started to comment it, then I come to conclusion that it is legally illiterate, so to say. It is not well grounded legally. So we disagree with the text of the draft law, but we believe that the problem still exists. And what we suggest to do in this situation, we suggest to call up a group of technical experts and to see what is possible to do in reality. So my suggestion, Tetyana, let us next Wednesday have a premise. Will you please provide us with a premise on next Wednesday at 11 a.m. Let's have a meeting in the premises of your association of computer experts, IT experts, and we will discuss all the problems. My colleague has reached wanted to reach Russian Spring website, and this website, if it is blocked by all providers, then Russian Spring would lose traffic, and during that moment, when Russian Spring loses its traffic, we will use this time to propagate the healthy way of life, patriotism, and our European future. Yesterday, I read an interview with my friend, Donbass volunteer. The best propaganda is when people leave their point of view for a moment and see another point of view. I would quote to you one of Bulgakov's statements that all the problems exist in human heads. I am not an opponent of the Ministry of Interior in this issue. I am very big supporter of your vision that the problem exists. There is a challenge in place, and for 20 years we have not been raising this problem, and now this is the right moment to tackle it. Let us start dealing with it. I do not believe that the right way to start this work is to start it under TV cameras, in the view of TV cameras. But nevertheless, I believe that we should meet together and to realize what is possible to do. Let us not set impossible targets. I fully agree with my colleague that currently all the experts are looking at the content, because we see this Russian Spring and see the danger and risks of this point of view, and we believe that this might ruin actually the logic of people, and we understand how dangerous it is. But there is another side of the problem, not just the content, but the part of cyber security, because via cyber vulnerability, our opponents may get access to our secret and classified information. This component is not less important. If there is such a wish to do something in this direction, I can see here real experts in this issue, and I understand that there should be willingness on their side to tackle the problem. That's why I suggest to sit together to see what we can do in practice, and then we will discuss the future legislative documents. The idea of such discussions established by Tetyana, Popova, and me was to launch a series of meetings and discussions on national security, defense, and counteraction to cyber attacks. I always provide a case when in one of the radio stations there was a play staged by a novel of Herbert Wells, how the Martian people landed in the suburbs of London, and the panic began actually. But similar scenarios could be launched now. That is, we have to protect our objects, national security objects. I'm not alone. I'm not just one legislator who's thinking about national security, and I believe that People's Front, that Samopomich party, all of us will be able to push up such legislation in the parliament. We should meet together, decide, and just do something. We have very good intentions here. My objective is to prevent censorship. I am a blogger, and I value very much the freedom of speech. But nevertheless, in case I try to stir up the national or ethnic antagonism between people, please stop me by technical means. And I believe that in our IT association with the major internet providers, we should develop a strategy, and we should assess the financial resources required for the measures which we may project. And if we can do something effectively with, for example, 80 million of people and still have money for bulletproof vests, this is the third or fourth roundtable which have been discussing the establishment of this working group. We discussed this in summer, and that's why I'll be very happy next Wednesday if it starts its work. I would like to remind you some things about content. I've been dealing with the content since 1992. Information war is about content. One of its objectives is to distract attention from something, and that is an attempt to provide responses to all such information injections. They are destruction of human, financial, technical, etc. resources. And please raise your hands who knows who are whistleblowers. whistleblowers in the language of security service. These are those people who disseminate rumors in the bus and trolleybus stops. And unfortunately, this technology continues to work quite successfully. And this is like very primitive but very effective technology. And this only demonstrates that never legislation would be able to prevent any changes related to development of technologies. That is, Russian Federal Security Bureau agents who are working like this, whistleblowers, rumor blowers in our bus stops. You cannot stop them legislatively. This only shows that you have to focus on the set of those actors who participate in the information war and not try to disperse your resources, but concentrate them. That is, the government has to develop a strategy because we need this base for volunteers to unite. From March, I've been trying to provide information for those people who might be in the shelling areas, and I found out that we do not have one unified center for provision of important information. And thus, my message is that anywhere where we want to keep control over dissemination of information, we should focus on developing the content, not just trying to limit the information. If this is just a first draft law, this draft law is totally about limitations of the content. That's not the draft law about development of counter content. Let us look at the European countries, at the European Union. They have very good document which says that internet mass media should not be restricted more severely with the rules than classical media. Because their classical their traditional mass media, they are very respectable and they are very reliable. We cannot issue such a document now in Ukraine. But if we take European legislation in media as a whole, as an example, we would be able to resolve the existent problems more efficiently. Let us try to apply comprehensive approach to problem solution.
If you allow me, as a general media specialist, comment, we currently are seeing the establishment of a special committee to deal with information policy at the national level, and really slow the process goes. I'd say it should be done as early as on 22nd of February. On one hand, and on the other hand, it is not feasible to forbid everything, and before my own eyes, the work on blocking Russian TV channel unfolded. There was a court decision on that, and then we worked in the regions. We worked together with the national council. We used our activists there. And Lugansk and Donetsk regions were among those where the process did not succeed, actually, or went with greatest problems. One of the local representatives just simply refused from banning these channels. And it was the time when doctored videos were already widely aired by Russian TVs. And those video news were clearly leading to the situation. It was already clear in March how it will go. They did it in Georgia, and they also launched clear-cut provocations the way they had it in Odessa, in Mariupol. It was intentional on their side, and because of that, we have to protect us. And then we will need to dedicate 80% of our roundtable discussions to dealing with these matters rather than quarreling with one another. I hail from Kramatorsk. And actually, if you remember the situation in Kramatorsk, there was no shelling there. And there were rumors that the local city mayor paid to separatists and to Mr. Yatsenyuk to prevent any shelling. The question is, could we really use these specialists of spreading information for our own purposes? The technologies of spreading rumors to subvert people, they work, but they work against the country. I have a comment on that. The drug trafficking was really widespread and very legal until late 19th, early 20th century. Morphine could be bought in a pharmacy store, and only after the First World War, some early steps to limit drugs have been made. And then we have this problem that persists, and there are two concepts: that this evil may not be overturned completely, and still we need to fight it. And if we have resources to fight drug trafficking and drug abuse, let us do at least something to that. Surely if we have an asteroid falling on the Earth, we won't be able to deal with it, and we probably will have to put up with it. But with problems like drug trafficking, drug abuse, or internet abuse, can and should be regulated. I am not interested in becoming co-author of a piece of legislation that will be an empty piece of paper. I think that we need a working piece of legislation which will bring less casualties, less problems, and less pain to our country. We will be able to analyze the legislation as soon as you know what is efficient and what is good about this legislation. We have really lots of dead laws in our country. As a media specialist, I can tell you that we have really wide coverage of audiences by the terrestrial and satellite TV. And if we had before live news with our cable operators, and it had really wide coverage across the country, we now have them really limited to the internet sphere, and given the extent of internet penetration, we can see a reduction of live news impact. And if we are able to further limit live news spread in the territory of Ukraine legislatively, then the the impact of this channel will reduce even more. Some professionals will still be able to use and see the channel. I don't see any chance for this potential reduction. Do you mind if I intervene? Let us briefly revisit our past experiences. Say, more than 10 years ago, the Security Service of Ukraine motioned its law, its legal proposal on monitoring telecommunications. It was motioned to the parliament through the cabinet, and it was a 2-year fight for that law, which ended in nothing. As soon as we were clear that this law proposal could not be improved in any case, we suggested our version of the document, which was scrapped by the security service because it was against their interests. It contained European norms, it could contain definitions of crime offenses, of measures to react, and all other steps that were not popular with security service officials, which actually resulted in no legal regulation of the security service telecommunications tapping system. That is, the system does exist, but it works outside legislative field. It has no legislative framework, so let us not fall for the same mistakes we committed back 2 years ago. Let us become very clear about our technical capacities, our terminology, and let us sit and write a new legislative craft which will be directly aimed at resolving the problem. And when you speak about cable operators, Tanya, it's a bit easier because you may limit very simply by clicking on a button. When we go on the internet to internet providers, the situation is much more complicated. And surely there are actually some ways of mitigating the problems. But for that purpose, we would need to go to courts to define the major traffic providers and possible ways of reducing access of the population in Ukraine to that type of content. And surely we won't be able to kill this traffic altogether. You know, it is my understanding that we try to use different words to express the same or similar idea. We try to check for the behavior of the Russians on the internet, on the ways they present their opinions and support their like-minded personalities. And many times we see it as a sectarian approach with sects really existing on the internet. And it is about also their selective behavior as regards consumption of this information. And unfortunately, we may only deal with this problem by eliminating that type of harmful content from the internet. On the other hand, we have differing audiences with their specific models of behavior. And when we speak of strategic communications, the way Ellina mentioned it, or rumors being spread on the street, it is a different reality. Strategic communications are a separate line of activity, and we should not mix them because it will bring us to even deeper yet fruitless discussions. At this moment, I see that the Ministry of Internal Affairs has offered a scheme that suggests eliminating wider audiences from access to the described content. I'd like to argument with you. You had a conference in Odessa in the end of last month, and you had our proposal on the table. You were offered to produce your reactions, your visions, and we haven't got any proposal from your side regarding our document. Yet we continuously hear criticism from your side. So speaking of foreign content doing its destructive work on the territory of Ukraine. Let's come back to this document that we suggest, to have a joint document that represents joint vision and joint understanding. Let us not play these protection games in front of TV cameras. Super. May I then ask you, officials, new officials, to be mindful that you have been employed by the public in Ukraine. You have been selected to your positions by the people of Ukraine, and you need to learn how to have dialogue with the civic society. When I say that the law inevitably trails behind technologies, it's like Newton's law. Don't try to teach us. Don't try to preach to us. I just want to expand your level of knowledge to the one that we already have. So it is not about us willing to play before cameras. It was you who ordered these TV cameras in. I've been telling it for 20 years in a row to the faces of those who are on positions, on governmental positions.
Okay, let us not to quarrel. Are you ready to provide your comments? Let us involve technical experts first. When under current legislation, where there is a violation of the law, the investigator cannot get a verdict which will prevent from dissemination of the dangerous content. I will respond to you because there is not such a measure, preventive measure against dissemination of the content, of the internet content. There is no such preventive measure in our legislation. That is what we suggested to do. We can act only via methods prescribed by Constitution and by Ukrainian legislation. That's why we need a provision which would allow the investigator and judge to issue a verdict which will prevent from dissemination of harmful content. When we organize trainings for investigators about technologies and how the legislation could prevent violation via new technologies. Do you agree that content of some Russian internet websites is harmful for social psychology? It is harmful for people, and it is actually results in death and. If you agree that this content is dangerous, do you agree that there should be some legislative and technical methods which will limit there is an incorrect formulation in your work. We agree that the problem should be resolved comprehensively. My intellectual level, of course, is insufficient for participation in such discussions. Thank you for your participation. Next Wednesday, we will meet with technical experts dealing with traffic issues. So I would like to emphasize, next Wednesday we meet with the technical